On Father's Day, Mark Reeves brought the family together, not to celebrate, but to ambush. He just didn't read page 4.
Son, we need to help Robert. Sign this deed transfer. It's already notarized.
David looked at the document sliding toward him. A manila envelope passed like a demand.
3 days of waiting. They really think I'm walking into this blind.
14 relatives leaned in. The only sound was the scratch of a pen. He signed without a word, a ghost of a smile flickering at the corner of his mouth.
You see, David knows what family means. Your brother just gave you a home, Robert.
Dude, I owe you. I swear I'll take care of it forever.
But tucked beneath the signature page, a 4th sheet printed 3 days earlier waited. David walked out to the sound of applause, and nobody noticed the extra page. Nobody had read. 3 days earlier, David came home early to find his father's car in the driveway. He entered quietly and heard 2 voices from the kitchen. Mark's voice cut through. Robert needs a place. David's condo is perfect. On Father's Day, the whole family will pressure him to sign.
So that's the play. A public ambush. They think I'll crumble under pressure.
Within the hour, he was on the phone with his lawyer, Frank Abernathy.
They're forcing me to sign over my condo. I need an addendum they won't read until it's too late.
A lease addendum, 25 years at fair market with your father as co-signer. If Robert defaults, Mark pays.
David printed the addendum on matching paper, a 4th page indistinguishable from the rest.
Page 4. The most expensive gift I'll ever give.
The next day, he had the entire document notarized, the extra page bound seamlessly into the stack. At that Father's Day table, David wasn't the victim. He was the only one who knew the game was already over. As David disappeared, the brunch turned into a victory party. Mark stood, tapping his glass for attention.
I knew he'd fold. All it took was a room full of people. Now, Robert, you've got a fresh start. Don't squander it.
Took long enough. That condo's been wasted on a single man. Robert needs it more. Family supports family.
Maybe David finally realizes he's been selfish. This is what good brothers do.
Robert grabbed the document, not to read, but to wave like a trophy. The notarized pages fluttered, page 4 buried in the stack.
Finally, Brooklyn is mine, and I didn't even have to say please. You guys are the best.
All right, let's plan the move, Linda. You're on boxes, Mary. We need to clean that place out this week.
The family toasted David's surrender, none of them suspecting they'd just toasted their own financial ruin. As Mark slipped the document into his briefcase, the edge of page 4 peeked out once, a line of text too small to read, too dangerous to ignore. The trap was set. David had given them exactly what they demanded, and they'd swallowed the hook without tasting the steel. David returned to his Brooklyn apartment, the cheers of his family still echoing in his ears. He pulled out his copy of the signed document and turned directly to page 4.
They signed it smiling. Now the real work begins.
The lease terms were dense, but the crucial line stood out, a 25-year commitment at market rate with an unavoidable guarantee.
Frank, it's done. They didn't even look at the stack.
The notarization holds, David. Your father is legally bound as co-signer. If Robert skips a single payment, Mark is on the hook for everything.
Good. Let's see how long family supports family lasts when the bills come due.
David set the document aside in a folder marked with a single word, insurance.
6 months? That should be enough rope.
He leaned back, the city skyline outside his window, and waited for the first of the month. A week later, Robert unlocked the Brooklyn condo with a brand new key, his parents hauling boxes behind him.
Nice, right? And all it cost was a little guilt trip. David folded like a cheap lawn chair.
David arrived at the informal housewarming, standing in the corner as relatives toasted Robert's new success.
Hope you don't mind I changed the locks. It's my place now, right?
Enjoy it while it lasts. The first bill is already on its way.
David left without a word. At the post office, he handed over a certified envelope. Inside, the first month's rent invoice addressed to Robert Reeves with a due date 2 weeks out. The return receipt would prove delivery. David wanted a paper trail from day one. A certified envelope marked rent landed on the counter. Robert walked past it 3 times before noticing.
Open it or ignore it. Every ignored invoice is just another brick in the wall I'm building.
Robert finally tore open the envelope. The number made him snort.
$4,000 a month? David's lost his mind. This is my place now.
He texted the invoice to Mark, who fired back a reply before the photo fully loaded. Mark wrote, "Ignore it. He's just bitter. Let him play landlord." 10 minutes later, Mark called David directly, his voice already climbing.
You sent Robert a rent bill after you gave him the place? What kind of brother does that?
Check the document you handed me. Page 4. I didn't give him anything. I signed a lease.
What lease? There was no lease. You signed the deed transfer. Don't play games with me.
David hung up without another word. He updated his spreadsheet and filed the certified receipt. Mark didn't pull out the document. He still hadn't turned to page 4. The calendar flipped through July, then August. Robert's online presence screamed one message: "I made it." He posted, "Brooklyn mornings in my own place. No rent, no rules. Thanks, Dad." Aunt Linda commented, "Mark, you're a saint. Robert finally has what he deserves."
3 months of unpaid invoices now. The trap is tightening at exactly the right speed.
David scheduled a meeting with Frank Abernathy. It was time to plan the next move.
Frank, we have 3 months of arrears and no payment. What's our strongest play?
We wait. 6 months of default transforms this from a dispute into a fortress. Mark will have no defense. Your father signed as guarantor. Section 4, paragraph 3. The more they ignore, the deeper they're buried.
Then we wait. I've been patient this long.
David left the office with a smile as cold as the autumn air. The family's celebration was almost over. The family gathered for a late summer barbecue. Every Reeves relative squeezed around a long picnic table.
I want to thank David publicly. Giving Robert that condo was a true act of generosity.
You've been so quiet lately, honey. Are you feeling all right?
He's probably just mad he's stuck in that tiny apartment while I'm living the high life.
Keep talking, Robert. Every word is just more interest on the debt you don't even know you're racking up.
David didn't bite. He set his fork down and reached for his glass, a calm spreading through him like ice. His phone buzzed. He glanced down at the screen. 6 months of unpaid rent confirmed. Lease terms enforceable. Guarantor liability activated.
6 months. Now the trap snaps shut.
He slid the phone away and met Robert's smirk with a look that made his brother's grin falter for just a second. The morning after the barbecue, David rang the bell of his former condo, a thick envelope of final demands in his hand. Robert opened the door in yesterday's clothes, the apartment behind him a chaos of takeout containers and unwashed dishes.
What do you want? Come to admire my decorating skills.
David handed him the envelope without a word. When Robert tore it open and flipped to page 4, the yellow highlight made his hand freeze.
This says I'm a tenant. A 25-year lease? $4,000 a month? Dad's name is on here as guarantor.
You signed it. The whole family watched. I just gave you a home, remember?
Robert's face went paper white. He fumbled for his phone, dialing Mark with shaking fingers.
Dad, get here now. We're in deep. There's something you need to read.
He didn't wait for a response. His voice cracked as he hung up, staring at the page that had just ended his free ride. David walked away, leaving the door ajar, the document on the floor, and Robert's panicked voice echoing down the hallway. Mark arrived in under 15 minutes, his car screeching to a halt outside the condo. He found Robert in the mess-heap living room, the lease page 4 pinned under a pizza box, its yellow highlights still glowing.
25-year lease, $4,000 a month, and my signature on a guarantee clause? This is a fraud. I'm calling him right now. He can't pull this.
You handed me the pen, Dad. It's notarized and ironclad. 6 months of arrears are due, and the guarantor is on the hook.
I'll sue you. I'll get a lawyer. You tricked your own family.
Check your own copy. Then remember what you said at the barbecue about family. The clock is ticking.
David ended the call before Mark could respond. The silence in the condo was louder than the shouting. Mark stared at the paper, the numbers growing heavier with every reread. He'd signed it in front of 14 witnesses. For the first time, Mark said nothing. He knew the game was over, and his name was on every line of the loss. 2 days after finding page 4, Mark wrote a check for a fraction of the arrears, enough to halt eviction, not enough to end the debt. He mailed it without a word, gripping the envelope like a white flag.
A down payment on a loan he'll never clear. But it buys me the patience I need.
Mark, you've been pacing the floor for a week. What aren't you telling me?
Just some unexpected expenses. Nothing you need to worry about.
But Mary found the foreclosure notice that week, a red stamp screaming across Mark Reeves's name. She didn't confront him yet, but she started checking his mail and listening at door frames. David updated his spreadsheet. 1 partial payment, remaining arrears now over $20,000.
He's paying just enough to stay afloat. That's exactly where I want him.
The family group chat buzzed with Thanksgiving plans, but in the Reeves kitchen, the only sound was the calculator Mark kept tapping. 2 nights before Thanksgiving, Mary summoned a family meeting. Mark, Robert, Aunt Linda, Cousin Jake, everyone except David.
I found this. Mark, you have to tell them what's really going on.
She slid the foreclosure notice across the table. Aunt Linda's hand flew to her mouth.
I helped Robert get on his feet, and things got complicated. It's temporary.
Temporary? The bank doesn't stamp that on a whim? What did you do, Mark?
I co-signed something. I didn't read the fine print. Robert defaulted.
This is David's fault. If he hadn't made that rent demand, you wouldn't be in this mess.
David heard the accusation through a family text chain that included him by mistake. He read it with a bitter smile.
They're blaming me for the trap they set themselves. Time to give them the real gift.
He pulled a glossy black frame from his desk and slid the notarized page 4 behind the glass. The next morning, David rehearsed in the mirror, holding the black-framed page 4 like a prop.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Here's what you actually signed. You didn't read page 4.
He wrapped the frame in brown paper, tying a silver ribbon as if it were a genuine gift. Across town, Robert opened his door to find an eviction notice, immediate effect. The words "vacate within 30 days" blurred in his shaking hands. The same courier handed Mark a court summons. The guarantee clause was now active.
$24,000? They want the full arrears by December?
The trap had escalated from rent to ruin. The Reeves family had 1 day left before Thanksgiving, and David had 1 gift to deliver.
They're all in one room. I'll unwrap it for them.
He placed the package by the door, ready for the holiday that would end the family's ignorance. Thanksgiving afternoon, the long dining table groaned with turkey and tension. No one had told David about the meeting, but he knew.
What are you doing here? This is a family dinner.
Funny. I thought I was family, but I didn't come for turkey. I came with a late Father's Day gift.
I don't want your gifts. Leave.
You'll want this one. It explains everything.
He brushed past his father and set the package in the center of the table, pushing aside the stuffing.
What is this, David?
Open it. I think Dad should do the honors.
Mark's hand trembled as he pulled the ribbon free. The brown paper tore across a glossy black frame. For 3 seconds, nobody breathed. Then the glass caught the light, and the typed words of page 4 waited for the first eyes to read them. The black-framed page settled on the white tablecloth. The typed words, 25-year lease and $4,100 a month, impossible to miss.
A lease? 25 years? Under my name?
I'm not paying $4,000 a month. This is a scam.
David read the guarantee clause aloud, his tone almost conversational. Mark Reeves, as co-signer and guarantor, assumes full financial liability for the lease and any accrued arrears.
Mark, you signed this? You're liable for everything?
We trusted you, Mark. This will ruin us all.
This is going viral. Everyone's going to see how you got played.
You all watched me sign at Father's Day brunch. You roared approval. You never turned the page because you never thought I'd fight back.
You're no son of mine. I'll fight this in court.
You'll lose, and the rent is due on the 1st of every month. Happy Thanksgiving.
David reached into his coat and produced the original notarized deed, page 4, stapled in place, the guarantee clause already yellow highlighted.
Before you call a lawyer, look at your own signature, Dad. You never read past page 3.
He pointed to the guarantee line. Mark Reeves, printed in his father's own hand, notarized the same June afternoon.
You planned this from the start. You knew I wouldn't read it.
You planned the ambush. I just added the fine print you never bothered to check.
And then the last piece fell into place as David's voice cut the silence.
Every single month, I paid the $4,000 rent myself. The arrears you now owe? They're all in my account.
The room couldn't understand. David had been funding his own revenge, converting their greed into a debt they could never escape.
Expect payment in full within 30 days, or Frank Abernathy will see you in court. The lease isn't going anywhere.
He set the framed page upright on the table, a monument to their mistake, and walked to the door without looking back. He stepped into the freezing night, the front door swinging shut behind him. Distant shouting already rose from the dining room. On the driveway, he paused and looked back at the lit windows.
Their anger can't touch me now. Every shout is just more proof that I won.
Through the glass, he saw shadows gesturing wildly around the table where his gift still stood. Inside his car, the silence was a relief. He pulled out his phone. The payment portal glowed. Guarantor arrears unpaid. Next rent due in 3 weeks. He smiled faintly.
They can ignore it all they want. The lease doesn't expire for another 24 years.
He started the engine and pulled away from the curb, the house shrinking in the rearview mirror. Back on the table, the framed page 4 sat untouched, the guarantee clause catching the last of the candlelight. It would stay there all night, the first thing they'd see every morning until the debt was paid. 3 days after Thanksgiving, the Brooklyn apartment was quiet. No messages, no calls, just the hum of the heating vent. A notification lit up his laptop, a bank transfer from Mark Reeves, covering exactly 1 month of the arrears.
He's paying now. Not because he wants to, but because the court date is circled on his calendar.
He updated the spreadsheet without ceremony, then leaned back in his chair. The spreadsheet had become a story he was tired of reading. On the wall beside his desk, a second black frame had appeared. Not a gift, a personal copy. The same notarized page 4, the yellow highlight framing the guarantee clause like a trophy.
The most expensive gift I ever gave was the one I never actually lost.
He looked at the frame the way other people look at family photos, with a kind of quiet, settled pride. And in that silence, David Reeves felt something he'd never felt at a family dinner.
At home.
In the quiet of his Brooklyn apartment, the framed page 4 remained exactly where he'd hung it, a quiet monument to a battle won without raised voices. It was not a threat. It was not a warning. It was simply the truth. Preserved under glass. Every month the payments would appear. Every month the lease would stand. David no longer needed to orchestrate. The document orchestrated itself. And that was the real revenge. Not the shouting, not the humiliation, but the permanent, silent machinery of consequence. He had given them exactly what they asked for, and they had built their own cage around it. So when the family thought of David Reeves, they would not think of a victim. They would think of page 4, and they would know that he had beaten them, not with anger, but with preparation. That was the real gift, the one they couldn't return. And in that quiet, the only sound was the slow, steady clock of a 25-year lease, still ticking. Months earlier in a crowded brunch, a father slid a notarized deed across the table and demanded a son surrender everything. A pen scratched once, forever altering the lives of 14 people who never bothered to turn the page. That one act, not of surrender but of calculation, rewrote the rules of a family that believed only in obligation, never in fairness. Now the framed page watches over David's home, a quiet guardian of the justice he built with nothing but ink and patience. He does not need to gloat, he does not need to call. The spreadsheet updates itself, and the lease runs for 25 years.
I didn't take revenge. I just let their own greed sign the check.
And in the end, the family who demanded everything was left with nothing but a debt they could never escape. A debt that started with 4 small words printed on a page nobody read. So when you hear Father's Day brunch, remember, sometimes the most dangerous gift is the one you demand. In a Brooklyn apartment, a man smiles at a framed piece of paper. He signed it smiling too. In the months that followed, the framed page ceased to be a weapon. It became a fact, as settled as the Brooklyn skyline outside his window. David no longer checked the payments. The spreadsheet ran in the background, its cells filling automatically with the slow drip of his father's dwindling accounts. He had been called selfish, ungrateful, a disappointment. But the only paper that mattered now bore his father's name and the unforgiving weight of the law. The Reeves family dinners continued, but a chair remained empty. No one asked why. The answer was hanging on a wall in Brooklyn. Mark never called. Robert's social media went dark. The relatives who once cheered the ambush now blamed the ambusher. But David felt no guilt. He had offered them exactly what they demanded, and they had signed their own sentence.
I didn't take anything. I just made sure they couldn't take either.
And so the lease ticked on, month after month, a quiet metronome of consequence in a world that believed only in talk. In the end, the only thing louder than the shouting at that Thanksgiving table was the silence that followed it. And in a Brooklyn apartment, the man who had been ambushed now sat in the driver's seat of a life he built one page at a time. The framed page caught the winter light, a silent testament to the day a signature meant the opposite of surrender. David rarely glanced at it now. It had become like the skyline, permanent, defining. The lease would run until he was nearly 60, his father would pay, or the bank would. Neither outcome required his attention. He had outlasted their noise. Only the quiet machinery of consequence remained, durable as concrete. Some evenings he opened the window to city sounds. In that ordinary music he heard nothing of his old life. The family had become distant traffic, a hum he no longer needed to interpret. He had been called many things, but the only word he ever saw was his father's name bound to an unbreakable promise. The pen that scratched at the Father's Day brunch had rewritten everything, and it would keep writing for decades. In the end, it wasn't about a condo. It was about a page that proved, read what you sign, or someone else writes your ending. And in Brooklyn, the framed page held the last light, its ink unchanging, its clock still ticking.